Hi, hello everyone. Welcome to this session of our course, Appreciating Linguistics, a Typological Approach. So, this was the story of agreement, and I have given you a question to find out what are the other possible agreements that you may encounter in the structure of any grammar of any language. Okay? Though our discussion is primarily in English, but I want you to think about whether similar things are available in English or not, and then if there is any difference, so how are we going to account for the differences, right? Now, the concern is to find out. All the time I have been thinking about prescriptive, descriptive approach, prescriptive versus descriptive approach. So, now let us formally try to understand what is prescriptive approach and how and why we need the descriptive approach at all, right. So, here I am going to write, okay. So, this is prescriptive versus descriptive approach. Okay. So, what is prescriptive approach first? What are the very rigid and strict rules that you have sometimes that you have been taught when you were learning English, maybe as a second language at the school? All of you might remember there was, if at all you remember what a preposition is, what an infinite, what is an infinitival, or what is an infinitive. Let us start with the preposition. Generally, it is believed that the sentences should not end with a preposition. So, if I write the rule here, then it will be it is like a mandatory thing that you have to follow all the time. So, rule number 1, you must not end let us say a sentence with a preposition. This is like one strong rule that you have. Then the second strong sort of mandatory rule that you might have learnt when you were there in school. So, it should be you must not split an infinitive. Okay. So, these are the two rules, these are like mandatory things that we generally learn when we are at school. Agreement that we were talking about, generally this is like the basic rule which has been set by who? By the traditional grammarians. Okay. But that does not work in the similar manner all the time, right. If we try to understand what is prescriptive grammar, so then obviously it is a set of rules that has been prescribed by the grammarians. I will just give you an example of two very stern, rigid and strict rules that most of you must have studied when you learned English as the second language. First, you never end a sentence with a preposition. Okay? So, that is what it is like a thumb rule. No preposition should be found, like no sentence should be ended with a preposition. However, in the modern day use or in the contemporary time, you see I am giving you two examples here. Look at this board. So, when you write or when you ask me a question, let us say I am an academician and then I have to publish papers, and you ask me which journal was your article published in. That is one way of asking. The other way of asking is, in which journal is your article published? Is there any way by which you think the first sentence is ungrammatical? Does it seem so, or is not is not acceptable. I was talking about ungrammaticality and unacceptability. What do you think, this is unacceptable or ungrammatical? The prescriptive grammarians will say the first sentence is ungrammatical. Why it is ungrammatical? Because it ends with a preposition in. But if you check, there is absolutely no harm in ending the sentence like this. There is, why should it be a problem? I am okay, though I am not a native speaker of English, but I find it okay when you are thinking, or when you are saying which journal was your article published in. I am absolutely fine with that. Though the second one is definitely a more formal, more like it is grammatically correct for sure. For me as a linguist, both the constructions are okay, they are grammatically correct and they are acceptable. So, in which journal is your article published? So, though prescriptively the rule has been laid that you must not end a sentence with a preposition, I find there is absolutely no harm in doing so. So, if you follow the prescriptive approach, the first sentence is unacceptable, like ungrammatical. But if you follow descriptive approach, because you have the data and the native speakers, they do speak like this. So, then there is no harm in the usage of the construction given in the first sentence. Clear? Now, let us come to the second example, or the second sentence. Second commandment, if I can say, or the second rule I can say, is you must not split an infinitive. Okay. So, what is an infinitive? When the verb occurs with a to. So, to go, to do, to dance, to sleep. So, these are the infinitival constructions, or two infinitive constructions, right. The prescriptive grammarians, let us look at the example given over here on the board. To boldly say that, let us say I am giving you a construction, it needs a lot of courage to boldly say that. So, to boldly say that would be an ungrammatical or a kind of a weird construction for a lot of prescriptive grammarians. Rather, they would prefer to say it in this way, to say that boldly. So, to and say, the infinitive will never be split. So, when you say to boldly say, you are basically splitting the infinitive and you are inserting an adverb to it. So, boldly is an adverb, and what you did, you split the infinitive, to is here, say is there, and boldly has been fitted in. However, if you follow the prescriptive rules, they would say no, this is not the way you need to write, rather you should say to say that boldly, right. But those who have been watching Star Trek, so obviously you would know Captain Kirk's, so when it is related to the native speaker's intuition, there is absolutely no problem in splitting the infinitive, okay. So the rule that has been stated, you must not split an infinitive, is baseless in that sense. A lot of native speakers would agree that such kind of a construction, there is absolutely no harm in it, right. So, these are just two simple instances that I can cite when I say yes, splitting the infinitive is not a bad idea at all. You can do that as and when it is essential, or as and when it is necessary. So, my question for you would be, can you think about, or can you find out some more examples of both these rules which are stated here not standing true, right. Okay, that means you definitely can end a sentence with a preposition, and you also can split an infinitive. In both the cases, you can do that if there is such a situation, if there is a permission in the situation. Okay. So, please find out, again, as I always say, every time I discuss a phenomenon, I expect you to find out if this kind of constructions are possible in your language, or do you think this is or the languages that you know apart from your first language or your mother language, you can also you can also use these types of constructions. You can split an infinitive, you also can end a sentence with a preposition. So, find out and then let me know about it. Okay. With this, then this is just a rule which has been, or these are the rules which have been prescribed by grammarians. So, the concern here is that these are the rules that which have been set for English, but it is not necessary that and generally in the 18th century, the 18th century grammarians have made some remarkable contribution to enrich the grammar system of English. So, the influential grammarians in the 18th century, what they did, they claimed that English should be spoken in this way. This is the only way, or this is like a language purist view. So, these are the ways by which let us say you need to speak English. Any kind of deviation here and there, it is going to be considered as a non-standard way of speaking. But our concern here is that how would you find out, or why would you say that the prescriptive rule that you are setting, it is going to work for all the languages in the world. It may not work for Latin, it may not work for Greek, it may not work for Hindi, it may not work for Chinese or Japanese. So, how would you do that? So, we should not blindly follow a particular rule which is okay for English is also going to be okay for other languages. So, that would be a prescriptive approach if you blindly follow rules and you are trying to extend it, or you are trying to fit all the languages into that set pattern. So, that is the purist approach or the prescriptive approach. However, in the modern study of linguistics, a lot of things have changed. People are not really rigid about certain prescriptive rules. That is how we got the descriptive approach of grammar studies. And what happens in the descriptive approach? We generally play around with the data set that you have in hand. So, what did the linguists do? They believe that the set of rules which are set for English may not be useful for other European languages, and it could be absolutely different for the non-related languages like Japanese or Chinese or Mandarin or whatever. So, all these Sino-Tibetan or Tibeto-Burman languages, it could be very different. So, then the linguists who were trying to describe the structure of the native languages, primarily in the North America, it started from there, they towards the end of 19th century. So, entire 18th century was predominantly the grammarians were prescriptive in approach. The situation got changed towards the end of 19th century when linguists, they tried to study some Native American languages, where they did find that there is a huge structural difference as far as English and these languages are concerned. So, what they did, they tried to the categories, and they tried to let people know that, or they could actually understand that the categories and rules which were appropriate for a language like English or a language like Latin does not they do not fit to the Native American languages. So, then what is the way out? What should they do? That does not mean that the data should change to fit a particular theory, not really. The theory should make it flexible enough to include or to incorporate or to explain all possible natural language data available in the surrounding, right. So, what the linguists did, those who are studying the native languages of North America, they rather approach they tried to adopt a different approach. And what is that approach? So, the approach that they adopted was descriptive approach. So, what did they do through this approach? They did some analysis on the basis of the samples of language data that they have collected. So, they were interested to describe the grammatical system of these Native American languages, and then what they did, they collected some data and the samples were analyzed following a different approach, and this approach is the descriptive approach. So, what they did, so when they were trying to understand how it is whether a particular rule which has been prescribed for English, if it does not work, then how we are going to tweak or how we are going to make the rule flexible or make the theory flexible, so that it can also be used to incorporate data from the other languages in the world. So, this is what we call descriptive approach. So, the rule has to change on the basis of the structure of the language, not the other way around. The structure of the language should not be changed just to satisfy the rule, not really. The rule should be flexible enough so that we can actually include data from various kinds of languages. Okay. So, that was about prescriptive and descriptive approach, and as I mentioned before, there are a couple of other things that you need to understand when you are thinking about syntax, or you are thinking about linguistics for that matter, considering this is a linguistics, basic level linguistics course. My concern for you would be to understand these two things. So, one is the structural analysis, the other one is the constituent analysis. So, the descriptive approach is primarily based on the structural approach. Okay. So, here is, so when I say structural analysis, I am primarily focusing on the descriptive approach. So, we have to find out certain patterns, or certain, let us say, certain styles or certain categories, which will or generally like you will call it as test frames. So, when it is a test frame, you have to find out a lot of data, like a lot of sentences, and then you have to fit certain kind of words and phrases into it. Let's take an example that Yule has discussed. I am writing the, and then I am writing, there is some gap here, I am writing makes a lot of noise. Okay. That is an example Yule has given. The other example, I heard a dash yesterday. If this is a test frame, this is basically a test frame. So, in this frame you can add a lot of things. You can write the car makes a lot of noise, the child makes a lot of noise, the donkey makes a lot of noise, the dog makes a lot of noise, or the radio makes a lot of noise. All of them can be fit into it. So, you can say car, you can say dog, you can say child, you can say let us say radio, you can say for example what else, maybe donkey. Okay. So, all of them can be used. So, in this frame you can actually insert a lot of other words, but you can't say I heard a car yesterday. No, you can't do that. So, car does not fit into this frame. It has to be some other grammatical category has to be added over here. Okay. So, when you say I heard, you can say a cry yesterday, you can call it a news, you can call it I heard a story. Okay. So, different words, but remember this and this, these are all nouns, generally the common nouns. So, in this frame, the frame here and this is the frame, this is the frame, you can actually add lot of nouns, and which nouns? The common nouns. But can you say the Kathy makes a lot of noise? You can't, because Kathy is a proper noun and it would not allow any definite article before that. You cannot say let us say the Sunday makes a lot of noise. You can't really do that. It does not make much sense. You can't say the dog. So, double definiteness marker is not allowed, right. So, this is a test frame that you need to understand when you are trying to figure out what the structural analysis of a sentence would be. Like that, we can create different kind of frames, and we can fit in the possible constructions that you think would be suitable for this particular frame, right. So, with this understanding, let us move to the constituent analysis. Okay. The constituent analysis would be, what is a constituent? When you are thinking about the descriptive analysis or the descriptive approach, then to understand syntax, you also need to find out when you are trying to arrange the words, do they follow certain pattern? The answer is yes. Within that certain pattern, can you have the subunits? When you say I love my let us say my friend, so in this case you don't you see my friend, they actually appear to be a unit. So that would be known as a constituent. But you can't say I love my friend, love my, does it sound to be a unit? Not really. So this is just a simple construction I am writing. So I love my country. Okay, let us say I love my country, I do love my country. So in this construction there are four words, and the words have been organized in a certain pattern. So there is the subject, there is the verb, there is a preposition here, and there is a noun here. So subject, verb, so this is S, V and O, I love my country. In such a simple construction, you see my and country, they can be considered as a unit, but love and my cannot be considered as a unit, right. So in this case, but love my country together can be considered as a unit. So our focus here should be to identify what are the units that we figure out, that we can identify in any given construction. When the sentence is a little longer, it is a little tricky to find out the constituents, but then just remember what is a constituent. There is a technique employed in the descriptive approach to design, like to show how small units or small constituents or small components in a sentence can go together to form large constituents, right. So I hope you understood what is this. In descriptive analysis, we put small units or small constituents one by one to create or to form bigger constituents or the bigger structures. So smaller structures being kept together result in the bigger structures. So how to identify these constituents? That is a question that you need to ask yourself. I just gave you a clue, which is that when you read or when you try to utter the sentence or speak or write the sentence, you automatically you can actually identify there are certain units which can go together, there are certain units which cannot go together. So now let us take an example of a sentence, an old man brought a dog to the wedding, right. So when I read this statement, you must have noticed I said an old man, that is one unit, brought a dog, I read it as a unit, let us see whether we can actually put it in the constituent category or not, and then to the wedding. So automatically the way I speak also gives you some idea what the constituents could be or what are the units which can go together, right. So now let us do the analysis. Let us start from the first phrase or the first segment. What is the subject? The subject is an old man. So here you say an, old and man, three of them they can come together to frame a constituent, okay. So an old man, so I think old man could also be a constituent, here it will be. So old and man together can be a constituent, an old man can be a constituent, a and dog together can be a constituent, brought a dog can be a constituent, the wedding can be a constituent, and to the wedding can also be a constituent. And the wedding is the small constituent, just a moment. So okay. So the wedding is a mini constituent. When it is added with to, it created a bigger constituent, to the wedding. And when to the wedding is added with or dog, it actually created another bigger constituent. Brought a dog to the wedding created another bigger constituent. So the small units together they are actually creating bigger units. So, these would be known as constituent. There are more rules, there are more syntax bound rules, we will discuss it later, but as of now my suggestion for you would be to understand constituent in the simplest method or in the simplest manner. When you speak, when you read or when you write, if you are intuitively you are considering something as a unit, then count it as a constituent. And sometimes the smaller constituents, they are put together to create bigger constituents, right. So, this is how generally languages work in case of descriptive analysis of grammar. So, these are not related to the prescriptive analysis as such. So, primarily we are going to focus on the descriptive approach as far as our discipline is concerned. Linguistics believes mostly or mainly in the descriptive approach of language. So, we try to stay away from the puritanism, or we try to stay away as much as possible from the prescriptive rules, though they are important to a certain point to begin with, but after that you have to make your rules as flexible as possible, so that all the variants or all the variations that you encounter when you study a language should be incorporated or should be explained using those set of rules. Okay. So, with this I would stop the pre-discussions on syntax, and now since you understood what is prescriptive grammar, what is descriptive grammar, what is structural analysis, what is a, let us say what is a constituent, how constituent analysis works, plus what are the basic grammatical categories that you may encounter in syntax, I hope it will be a little easier for you to understand syntax as a technical discipline in linguistics. So, in the next session I will talk about some syntactic rules, very basic level fundamental rules of syntax, and eventually we will move to syntactic typology. Thank you.